So we're going to start today's session with a conversation with Ashish Gupta, partner of Clearvision Ventures. Ashish has had a long career in venture capital, and I've known him for a very long time as a friend. Um, we talk periodically and exchange notes. So this is a wonderful opportunity to share one of our catching up conversations with you. So welcome, Ashish. Great
Thank
to
you so
see
much.
you.
Thank you for having me.
So Ashish, of course, the world is hyperventilating on AI. So let's start with that discussion. What do you see? How do you parse? What is your AI investment thesis?
Um, so I think the even AI and then more recently Gen AI, and as we'll go further, I'm sure you'll parse those two out. Um, I'm a database guy by training, and I'm a big believer in Blind Man and the Elephant as the story paradigm, where the five blind people go to check out an elephant and feel different body parts and conclude that the elephant is a totally different object. So I think I'm one such blind person who touches and feels a whole bunch of things, and therefore a perspective that gets informed by more the database bias that I have
Mm-hmm.
from my past leads me to view a lot of technologies through that lens. And AI is particularly interesting in that regard because it takes a whole bunch of things that otherwise people like me used to do around data mining and data processing, and makes it irrelevant by replacing the human brain with brute force compute by saying, okay, if you could comprehend three dimensions, we will instead figure out 30 dimensions at one point in time by finding patterns using machine learning algorithms, which is enormously powerful and leads to, especially in companies that have the data, being able to leverage that to improve their own executions at a fantastic pace. So I think it furthers the power of the already powerful in ways that are very hard to comprehend. And I think evidence of that is reflected in the market caps of a lot of the larger companies that have taken one of the assets that they had. So people often talk of data as quote unquote oil. I think it is a little dangerous analogy because you also need to own the refinery. Otherwise, it's not as much oil as much as sludge. And these larger companies are able to use AI. Um, and I sometimes wonder how much of the startup activity, by virtue of this acceleration, actually gets hurt. So I'm more concerned about AI-based startups being uh, as vibrant a value proposition as much as AI helps the larger companies more disproportionately, in my view, Shramna.
Very interesting perspective. So let's double click down on that.
Yeah.
We've had, seven or eight conversations with investors so far in this series, in this AI series that we're doing, and um, and almost universally, everybody's excited about vertical AI, and they're investing in vertical AI startups. People who are coming up with a small, well-defined problem and really, solving that with AI in a very meaningful way.
Right.
Um, so, is your perspective significantly different from that vertical AI
Uh,
hypothesis?
so I think there are many ways to slice. So if we for a moment assume that the reason to contain the scope of what one is applying AI to is so that one reduces the probabilistic nature of the results, and one increases the depth of what is contained in the models, both of which therefore lead to better outcomes, deeper and more precise. I actually agree with that thesis. And one of the things that has excited me personally, I'll just put that into the mix because back to the blind man and the elephant, this is just one perspective. I've been particularly excited about companies that are bringing human beings in addition to AI.
Yeah.
Uh, and so human in the loop kinds of companies,
Mm-hmm.
because that helps, in my view, compensate for the impreciseness of things that sometimes AI brings to bear,
Yeah.
and also the need for constant refinement, where several of these companies don't have the internal talent pool to do that constant refinement. And then, if I bring that kind of thinking to bear to your point about vertical AI, it actually begins to add up in my head also.
Yeah.
Because frequently these vertical players are people who don't have deep technical teams. So while Amazon can take advantage of the AI kind of stuff that I was talking about very effectively,
Yeah.
if I look at a Pfizer, for example, and I'm just picking Pfizer out of the hat, I have no particular reason to
Yes.
insult
Yes.
them for not having a technical team. I don't know enough, but I'm speculating that companies like that will have a harder time hiring the quality of talent that an Amazon or a Facebook will.
Certainly.
Uh, Verticalizing that and going to people who have data, but in my view, also with a services component to it. That way, one makes both the solutions more precise and one helps them bridge the gap between knowing that this technology is powerful versus converting it actually into a solution, is the direction in which I've been biased.
Mm-hmm. I've actually talked to a number of people in who are looking at the services aspect and the human in the loop aspect. So, have you invested in companies with
Uh,
human in the loop?
A few. So, for example, there is a company called Skit. They build voice bots.
Mm-hmm.
So, an agent gets replaced by a voice agent. However, let's say somebody starts singing a Elton John song in the middle of a conversation about banking. Now the bot would not know where to go. So you need to bring a human in the loop. And this is a ridiculous example of more realistic boundary conditions that you can imagine. So 80% of the conversation ends up happening with a bot, and then some 20% gets handed over to a human.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is a company called Inferred here in the Bay Area. They extract data from for mortgage and insurance companies. And there you will end up with the odd data element, which does require a human being to look at things and reconcile them. But otherwise, 99% of the work will end up getting done using AI models. Or a company that actually serves the pharma industry. They do content management.
Mm-hmm.
The same piece of content for a pharma company can find its way into marketing literature as it can in an FDA disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
So content is a very important part for pharma companies. This company uses a combination of man plus machine to repurpose content to help them figure out how to create labels for different geographies and stuff like that. And they're all companies that are constantly readjusting the boundary of what machine learning can do and what human beings then have to do to finish off the job that was partially done by an AI based solution.
Ashish, what are your companies, these examples that you just shared, experiencing in terms of adoption by these humans in the loop? Are these humans, by the way, do these humans work for your startups or they work for the enterprise?
Great question. And I think that is one of a very important open in play dynamics, Shramana, that we'll see how it goes out. And I really don't even have a hypothesis. For these companies currently, all the people who are using the tools are internal.
Okay.
And part of it is because the tools keep changing so quickly that training a third party on using those tools is a constantly moving target. And as a result, it is a hard one to
Okay. So
fulfill
they're selling product and services, technology and services, and the service element is performed by the startup,
by the startup.
not.
However, yeah, but the question that you raised is very much an elephant in the room question, because tomorrow, if somebody comes and presents a solution that is usable by an internal person, um, and there are internal HR questions, where, for instance, the person who owns a particular function, are
Mm.
they used to outsourcing the work? Let's take a head of marketing in a company.
Yeah.
They're used to working with agencies, and actually, that's one of the companies that I'm invested in does exactly that. It's a AI powered agency.
Yeah,
Now, the head of marketing is used to buying final content.
right.
But tomorrow, what if they only want to change which to that in a website? For that, should they really be paying the agency for changing that, or should they change that and it really doesn't impact the SEO value of the content or stuff like that? Those boundaries will soon start getting crossed and in much more meaningful ways. So, your question actually is one of the big ones that all of these companies are thinking about, even though they've taken a certain choice right now.
There's another question, a very similar related question that is also coming up, where people are, the vertical AI company assumes that a human on the enterprise side is going to use their technology, and the human who's supposed to be using their technology is also supposed to be training that technology. And that human is very nervous about using or training that technology with the
Yes.
fear that they're going to get eliminated from the loop.
Very true. Very, very true. And one of the reasons why several of these companies at least have taken the path of saying we will bundle both the technology and the human being to provide you an outcome is because
Of this
that
issue.
HR aspect
Yeah.
is fraught with uh, it's a beyond our pay grade kind of question because there are bigger forces at play
Yeah. Yeah.
in that. Totally, totally agree with you.
So, Ashish, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and
Mhm.
ask you about hallucination.
Okay.
Now, here's a amusing anecdote. A friend of mine sent me a screenshot.
Hmm.
He tested what Meta has to say about Shravana Mitra.
Okay.
And this is absolute garbage. Shravana Mitra has a degree in journalism, an MBA from University of Texas, none of which is remotely true. and, and he's like, this is what AI is saying about you. I'm like, well, this is why general AI has a long way to go.
Indeed. Yeah. And
So now this is an amusing instance. It doesn't really, hurt anybody,
it
but
could turn dangerous pretty quickly. If,
it
for
could turn
instance,
dangerous very
yeah,
quickly.
I mean,
Exactly.
you are in no need of a job, but if somebody was looking for a job, and this is what the recruiting manager saw, and blindly trusted uh, a large company's results over what was written in a resume, we this person could be rejected with, and that is one of the smaller things. But it is widespread, Shamana. In fact, one of the gentlemen that I work with, he's building a company which is solving a very narrow problem in the programming space. One of the use cases that everybody keeps talking about is that programmers will be replaced with automated code generation thing. So this is the founder of a publicly traded company that now has started another startup, and they're solving a particular problem for one particular kind of programming,
Okay.
just code review.
Okay.
And he was remarking to me a couple of weeks ago that he either has become incompetent or these other people who are claiming that they can write entire systems are blowing smoke up everybody's backside because they are finding that it is hard to do reliable, predictable code review for just one programming language.
Yeah.
And these are people I've known for 17 years and they have not turned into idiots. I think it is really the hype of a lot of the stuff that yet has not been deployed in enterprises. And I'm seeing that consistently in most of the companies.
Absolutely. I mean, generative AI is a very new technology, right? It's, barely 2 years in industry and really 1 year in industry, not even two. And to build that much technology on top of that, to build whole systems, I mean, writing whole systems is serious business.
Yeah,
This is a joke.
yeah.
So I think we are, 5 years away from anything remotely close to that. Will
And
probably
even
happen, but it's not nowhere
not
near
imminent.
there.
Not imminent. And for instance, one of the companies that I was referring to, a company called Pepper Content,
Mhm.
they have internal tools and they are becoming the next gen agency. But it is very clear to the founder, and he positions it as I am an agency, not here is a set of tools, and henceforth you can forget about
Yeah.
WPP or Publicis.
Yeah.
He's very clear that, hey, I am also an agency. I have people. Because a
Yeah.
lot of the content, it is obvious to the reader that this is machine generated
Machine
because
generated content got really uninteresting, flat, no
very
personality content.
flat. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I find it hard to put my finger on what, but when I read it, it is very clear that,
Yeah.
nah,
You
no
know,
flavor.
we have talked internally in my team because we do so much work with content, and I'm like, you know what, we're not doing this because I'm known in the industry for a really strong, powerful
Right.
voice. We are not going to, tarnish that with this kind of flat
Yeah.
garbage.
Yeah.
So, by the way, if you remember a few years ago, there were these terminologies we used to use in this business. One is do it yourself, and the other is do it for me, right?
Okay.
DIFM. And I think AI, these vertical AI solutions, many of them would perform better as DIFM technologies.
Yeah. Uh, uh, and hence, because I too am of that view, Shamna, hence at least my bias, not complete by any sense, but given that we all have to make a choice, is indeed to go after companies that are adding a human layer
On
on top
top.
of this.
Yeah, interesting.
That way, the customer has somebody to talk to when, uh, and those tools, the analogy that I end up using is uh, if I have to dig a hole in my backyard, I'm going to rent a crane with a driver. I'm not just going to rent a crane because then that hole could very well be in my living room
Yeah,
because I'm not trained to use heavy equipment,
exactly.
and this is heavy equipment.
This is heavy
And
equipment
you don't come and park it in one's living room and start playing with it and expect results that are productive. So you hire it with a driver,
with the driver. Yeah.
and
No,
hence at least my short-term bias. Yeah,
and if you have a Ferrari in your hands and you drive it like a Honda Civic, that is not a good use of the Ferrari either.
very true. Very true.
So, what of platforms and this euphoria, this absurd amounts of funding that are going into a handful of very large platform companies? How do you analyze them? I can imagine that you don't want to invest in them,
Yeah, I
but
too poor. Okay, missing four zeros.
wouldn't, no question. But what? How do you analyze them?
Um, First and foremost, I don't have a deep enough understanding to have an opinion that you should take too seriously. It's based mostly on reading, and I maybe should have invited my wife to this. She's the AI PhD. She does machine learning research at Google. So you have the wrong family member for this conversation. The little that I have been able to piece together, I think several of I come back to the disproportionate advantage that the larger guys have. And by the larger guys, I mean the Amazons and the Facebooks, because they also have access to untold amount of data.
Yes.
And those dimensions, I think, are going to become an interesting future dial where how are these models going to continue to stay current? On the natural language understanding portion, one reaches an asymptote.
Yeah.
However, on the contextualization, which comes back to your uh, vertical LLMs or Gen AI plays question also, um, why should I take on the overhead of an all-knowing beast and then try and constrain its power by putting
Don't need it.
chains around it? I would rather start with a smaller beast and beef up its biceps if that is all I need, as opposed to contain the other beast's quads and brain. And
Yeah.
there is something upside down in
And then
this.
introduce in inordinate amounts of hallucination as a result.
Absolutely. So to contain that hallucination, I first take on this nuisance of controlling context by adding. Instead, why don't I start with the much smaller, thinner
Yeah.
model
It's
if all
my
I want?
instinct also. I can't claim to know enough computer science, even though I am a computer scientist, you are a computer scientist, but we are not working at this level at the
Indeed.
moment in the computer science level. But just pure instinct, I don't think it's, you talked about the database perspective, right? Databases need metadata. They need the, how you organize the data and all that. And uh, they're already you're constraining,
Right.
right? Your
Yeah.
learning models will take that constraint, that or data organization, the data structure, so to speak, and the metadata, so to speak, from that organization. And then why not just work with a smaller vocabulary, smaller language model that is domain specific and just work with that? And then there is no hallucination,
Absolutely.
none of the, you know, extraneous stuff.
Yeah. And if, for
Right.
example,
And that's where I land as well.
same here, if I'm in the pharma world, I don't want to now keep telling the model that MS is not Masters of Science or Microsoft or 40 other things.
Yeah.
And also the company is asking, I've got all this data, which in free text is now for the first time aggregatable because I don't need to structure it. I can stick it all into a LLM. Why should I worry about how is this data going to get used, abused, mixed up with
Yeah.
all kinds of other folks? And I'm a large Fortune 100 company. I have more than enough data for this model to become rich and uh,
Totally.
and be useful. So I struggle with the large money use cases being built on top of.
Yeah. No, same here. I think I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
Now, here's a question that is having been in the industry for a while and SaaS being quite active for many years now, right? I would say around 2008,
Yeah.
SaaS became really successful as a investment category, and lots of money went in there, and we've seen cloud companies, SaaS companies, an explosion, and vertical SaaS has been a very successful field with good workflow automation, etc. Now comes AI, and now comes AI with SaaS, combination of SaaS and
Mhm.
AI. So there is this new company starting from scratch that is AI plus SaaS. And then there's an old vertical SaaS company that maybe is doing $30, $40 million in revenue, but doesn't have AI. What does this company do? What does the incumbent do?
Yeah. So I think pretty much every company has no choice but to start using some parts of AI. I think that is fait accompli.
Yes.
And several of the, at least SaaS companies were built um, assuming an RDBMS as the underlying platform. Some of that portion will also get fragmented because if I have unstructured data, let's take a customer support app.
Yeah.
Customer support apps take
All
unstructured
unstructured.
data, forcibly structure it, in the process lose fidelity.
Yes.
And there is no real reason for why, well, there are good reasons, I take that back. There is a strong reason for reconsidering an RDBMS as the backplane on which one builds a knowledge oriented app. It was being used because there was no free text based compute
Right.
platform before AI has arrived. So I think the the example that you portrayed, this company, the incumbent has an advantage. And the advantage that the incumbent has is AI is still a technology. The business problem on top of it is the real thing that causes people to buy that solution or not.
Yeah.
And that understanding is deeper with the incumbent than with the person who's got the new tools. And technologies at the end of the day don't end up determining, especially business facing companies' future. They get adopted horizontally by everybody. If somebody is uh, lazy about it, then it's a different issue. But this 30, $40 million company, I think, has a better chance if they uh, consciously start adopting AI than a person who starts brand new, modulo those classes of applications where the entire architecture has to be revisited.
But that's part of the issue, though, Ashish,
Right.
right there, because the AI stack and a non-AI cloud stack are different,
Indeed.
and and that's where kind of offering the full power of AI in an old architecture is a non-trivial problem to solve.
Yeah. So if it is more of a knowledge intensive free text based application, I would be cheering for the newbie
Newbie, yeah.
some more. Let us say this was a company that was dealing with financial data where you really cannot walk away from inherently structured data.
Yeah, that's
Then
different.
I
That's
would be cheering for the incumbent, and then there would be the real hard problems, which I think you're referring to, which are people in the middle, where one cannot take this easy cop out that I have taken, um, where I think one would have to uh, lose some money before one finds the right answer.
No, I think you're what the nuance that you are pointing out is correct in that it depends on the problem and it depends on the domain and the nature of the data. It is if it's a more structure-oriented data, then it's easier to make the transition. If it's largely unstructured data that really has the power to solve problems, then it's the newbie is at an advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Ashish, it's a pleasure. We will continue the
Thank you.
conversation and please do send me an email with when you want to come over
Look
and
forward
we'll
to it.
arrange
And
something.
thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure.
And take care, Shum.